call the meeting to order. It's 12 o'clock. This is the Criminal Justice Coordinating Committee Council. Mr. Hoff, on behalf of Ms. Williamson, can you verify that we're in compliance with open meetings law? Mr. Hoff?
Yes, we are.
Okay. We'll all do a silent pledge of allegiance to our flag in the interest of brevity. And I don't want that to be construed as I not align with the United States, but we're moving forward. Next, we have the meeting agenda. Is there any of the committee members present who have any questions about the agenda as it's presented?
I did not see the agenda. I was looking for it. I didn't see it. I looked online too. We were having problems with it. You get it? That's what I was looking for, and I was having problems.
So essentially what we have on the agenda is we've got minutes from last meeting. We have a discussion and possible action item with citizen appointment. We're going to have a justice point update. And then we're going to have other matters for discussion only, and then date of next meeting. One thing we're missing on here is public comment. So if I could entertain a motion from a committee member to adopt the agenda with the addition of public comment. I have a motion from Judge Iacco. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second from Mr. Paquette. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Are moving forward. Minutes from the last meeting. Has everyone had a chance to review the minutes?
Move to approve.
Approve the minutes?
Yes.
Motion from Judge Iacco. Second from Mr. Paquette. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Moving on.
I abstained from that because I did not get a chance to do that, Jim. So I'm not going to.
All right, so Carol, for the record, we have, all right, for the record, Carol, we have in the room, we have Tweed Schuman, we have Lieutenant Johnson, we have Kathy McCoy, citizen, we have Chief Deputy Sedera on behalf of the sheriff, we have Vice Chair, or Vice Councilwoman, Vice Chair Lorraine Gouget, we have Judge Elaine Smith, we have Gary Hilgendorf. We have the District Attorney, Bruce Paquette. We have Judge John Iacco. We have County Board Chair, Tweed Schuman. We have on the phone, we have Reed Raymond for the Public Defender's Office. We have Jeff Slay from the Corrections. We have Tom Hoff, County Administrator. We have Nick Sainer from Justice Point. Is there anybody here present or on the phone who's present whose name I did not identify? All right, so our clerk who's taking minutes doesn't have a microphone, but she can hear what we're saying. So I need to be clear about what the motions are and for point of discussion. With that going forward, is there anybody here who wishes to address this committee who is not on the agenda? This is what we call the public comment component. Hearing none, moving on now. We're on item number 6 of the agenda. This is the citizen appointment to the council. At the previous meeting, the committee had voted to approve appointing 2 citizens at large to serve on the CJCC, and they would speak on behalf of the citizen issues and participate in a discussion as we deal with various recommendations to the criminal justice system for Sawyer County. It was posted in the minute agenda, so it went out in the Sawyer County record. It was posted pretty much county-wide. There was a lot of action, a lot of conversation about this. We had people who had submitted information with a recommendation or a request to be appointed. Those two people are present today. One is Gary Hogendorf, who has participated with this council for the last year when Diane McNamer was the administrator, and then Kathy McCoy, a former county supervisor, who had served on this committee in that capacity during her term. These two have both submitted a letter of interest. I want to give them 2 minutes to address the committee as to why they want to be here, what their interests are, their availability, and anything else that they want to go. Ms. McCoy, we'll go with you first.
I just basically, I believe.
Everyone's going to have to speak up because we have microphones and so.
I think I could be a valuable asset to this committee in terms of the fact that I have been on the county board for a number of years. I know a lot of history related to the county board, related to jail issues, related to tribal issues. I was a founding member basically of this committee, and I've seen the things where the committee has started to move. My biggest regret, or my only reason that I would not have ran for county board supervisor, was I wanted to remain on this committee. I think this committee is what we need to do. I believe in reform. I believe in giving people the right to treatment, to dignity, to services. We need to work on things in the back end, not look at, oh, we need to build another jail. We've talked about mental health issues in the jail. I mean, how much services are we providing? 2 hours once a week, things like that. So I think I am a valuable asset. I also have a wide base in the community. I'm a member of lots of different organizations, faith-based, community-based. I have a lot of contacts. I deal with a lot of people on a daily basis as my job as a clerk. And also I do tax returns. And I do tax returns for probably how many tribal members and how many doctors, lawyers, I mean, the whole spectrum of Sawyer County. And it gives you a really good idea of what people are at, of where they're at. So anyway, I think I'd be a valuable asset, and I would enjoy or like to serve on this team.
Mr. Hogendorf.
Well, I am been in Sawyer County for 33 years. And I've got to know lots of people over the time frame and been very involved in particular here with the trying to help both women. We have a shelter on B that is up and running and moving forward. And then also we're in the process of trying to get a men's shelter put in place, and we just are putting some stuff together for the city council to consider with a house for that as well, which is the parsonage right next to the church across the street here. And so there's just my contacts like Kathy. I have lots of tribal contacts. When I was in car sales for years, my best customers were tribal people. And I've got lots of contacts out there, and as well as the whole community with all the churches, and have good relationships with everybody. And so I just would look forward to working together and trying to turn the ship around here when it comes to incarceration and people with drug and alcohol addictions in particular, and giving them a ray of hope and getting them out of the situation that they're in.
Thank you, Mr. Hogendorf. Now we're going to open up
Chair.
questions from the committee. I'm going to go with Mr. Schuman first, and then Mr. Hoffman next.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we approve the appointments of these two fine individuals, Sawyer County residents, Ms. McCoy and Mr. Hogendorf, to our committee as citizen members.
All right, we have a motion on the floor for Mr. Schuman. Is there a second?
Second.
I've got a second for Mr. Reed.
Yes.
I mean, in discussion, I think what we can do is only advance this. I think that full supervisor has to appoint or approve the appointment. So your motion would be to advance it for consideration with approval from this committee.
Yes, sir.
And Mr. Reed, do you agree with that motion?
Yes.
Any other comments and discussion?
Very good candidates.
Hearing no more discussion, call for the vote. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Next, we have the Justice Point update. Mr. Sainer, the floor is yours. Everyone's had a one-page document with the proposal from Justice Point. Mr. Hoff is on call to available to answer questions regarding the document itself. I know that if you don't have access to electronics, you don't have that document in front of you. So, Mr. Sander, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for inviting me to the CJCC meeting. I sincerely appreciate it. I guess the first thing I would open up to anyone is any questions about the proposal that I submitted. I think at the last CJCC meeting, I said I would have a proposal submitted to Mr. Hoff, so for his review. We were able to schedule a meeting to review any questions that he had, but I guess I would open it up for any questions that the CJCC would have on the proposal and the attached budget.
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Hoff.
Yeah, thank you. Tom Hoff, County Administrator. Just want to let the rest of the committee know that we did meet with Mr. Sainer over the phone to discuss the finer points of the proposal. I think he did a good job of outlining what he can do for us and replacing the two individuals that formerly helped us in these positions, namely Diane McNamer as Criminal Justice Coordinator and Dick Welch in the jail portion of the program. So currently, of course, we have those two positions open. And so the proposal from Justice Point helps us perform those functions that those previous Sawyer County employees did for the county, and also the other related expenses with regard to the current testing program and other things that were in the Sawyer County budget. So, you know, we went through line by line. You know, we're pretty close to being budget neutral per se, depending on, you know, how some of the programs line out. But this is basically to replace, you know, what the county had been doing. We also had a lot of discussion with Mr. Sainer about, you know, the future direction of, you know, what this committee needs to do in anticipation of developing the drug court for our Second Circuit Court or second judge, and also the TAD grant funding, you know, which is a 5-year window. You know, once every 5 years, this thing rolls around that we have an opportunity to get grant funding to help with the programs that we hope to develop through the CJCC. So I think, you know, the value that each of these committee members have and the cooperation that we will get going forward, and we need to get that momentum back. And Justice Point, I think, can guide us into, you know, what direction that we need to go, because I think we've been floundering a bit here in the recent past, and we need to get that momentum back and build some of these programs that I think will help in the long run. And I agree with Kathy McCoy's comments earlier. I think this committee is really the committee that needs to make some headway and some of the issues that we have, the social issues, the jail issues, you know, the health issues within Sawyer County, and a lot of the programs that we need to develop are going to be recommended out of this program. So I'm looking forward to working with Justice Point in this, but I think, you know, from today's perspective, I think from the budget perspective, you know, we can make it work. We're going to have to look at, you know, programming and financing of those programs as we go forward. But I think this is a good bridge for us because, you know, with the void of the two employees, this is a good way to get us realigned, not only with the help that we need, but also the expertise.
Any questions for Mr. Sainer from anybody from the floor? Mr. Schuman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Nice job, Tom. Mr. Sainer, when you had come to the tribal government board meeting and kind of explained your proposal to the county and talked about the past jail assessment that you did, your company did, these two positions that you're proposing within your program budget, does that include what the tribal governing board wanted was a representative, or at least a part-time representative that could see tribal members and assist them through this process? Can you answer that, Nick?
Sure. Thank you for the question. My understanding is that that is something separate. It may be incorporated into these roles as we start fleshing out more of the scope of services. I know what I'm really interested in is getting these positions staffed and finding out what their capacity is to provide a wide array of services. Mr. Schuman, I would assume that would be one of the things that we would want to address and talk about. If the capacity to provide services to tribal members as they're going through the criminal justice system would be able to be incorporated in it. At the same time, my assumption and my expectation of these positions is that these positions would be knowledgeable in providing services and referrals and connecting people to services, whether they are tribal members or county members and county citizens as well. So I know that's probably not a really 100% answer one way or another. The piece, again, that I'm struggling with, and I think I've said this even at our last meeting, is there's a lot of moving parts. We're talking about taking on responsibilities and roles within the Sheriff's Department, as well as taking on Diane's previous role. I'm still not 100% sure about the capacity of these two positions being able to take on those roles and additional responsibilities. I think there's going to be some efficiencies of scale, given the fact that we're going to be able to have two people that can tag team some of those responsibilities. How much efficiencies of scale we're going to create, I'm not 100% sure yet.
Mr. Hoff, what is the next steps of this process?
The proposal that Justice Point has given us, we can enter into a contract with them. It would be a sole source type procurement, since this is a relatively unique thing that Justice Point does, and we do have that provision within our purchasing policy. But I do like the idea that it is running through this committee, and I think we should also get the board's blessing so that they realize, what direction we're going with this, and that we're using those two authorized positions and the rest of the CJCC budget to fund this opportunity. So I guess at this point, if the committee is agreeable and thinks that this is a good idea, that we would make a recommendation to the board to enter into this contract.
So to be clear, then we have a funding position. We have a funded position with McNamara, and then that's a position in the jail that we're going to be putting on hold to fund this operation.
Yes, we would be leaving those positions open as county positions and using the budgeted amount that had been budgeted to fund the Justice Point employees and programs.
Mr. Schuman.
Mr. Hoff, did I hear you say earlier that this is budget neutral then, this proposal of $233,000?
Well, it's hard to say, because I think as Mr. Sainer said, he's got to get in there and see exactly what what the opportunity or what the responsibilities are and the time it takes to do them, and are we going to do the same thing, or are there things that Justice Point can recommend to the county to do things differently, and what does that cost? Or if we need a program, and this is a program that's going to get us off the ground, but it's going to cost the money, then we're not budget neutral. So we're close. We're probably a little bit underfunded, actually. But Justice Point is going to bill us actual costs. So this is, the estimate of activity that they are willing to provide, and then will bill us based on actual costs as we go along. And obviously we're in the 2021 budget process. So if we learn things over the next month or two that we need to adjust anything for the 21 budget, we've got a couple of months to make those adjustments as well.
Well, we still have an open request for the tribal council to provide some additional support. And I know that was part of their discussion when they had Nick down at with the TGB. Is there any other comments for this? Do you have anything else from the tribe on this? Hold on. Brian, do you have anything from the tribe on
I
that?
wanted to just be updated on things, because I was not here the last couple of meetings, and I've been trying to stay informed where we're at. And I did not hear an exact amount, but I do know the tribe is very concerned with the report that was presented to us and what needs to be done now. And we want to support those efforts in doing what we need to do.
So,
So I did not know exactly where some of those pieces were at, and I'm listening to things now and getting caught up on, and I'm not sure when it's gonna be started, but I do know that people are looking into across the board now, so. Tweet, I wasn't sure, like I said, the amount.
so right now, the tribe has an MOU with the county that contributes $25,000 every
Yeah.
year. I think we're in year 2 or year 3 of that MOU, so it's about to expire. There was a request that was submitted back in February for an additional $25,000, which was to work with some of the testing equipment to test the testing. That's, of course, got obliterated with this pandemic, so I have no idea where that's at, even what the numbers would look like or what that would be. I'm gonna go with, I have one more question for Mr. Hoff, and then I'm gonna go with Ms. McCoy. Mr. Hoff, if we go with this Justice Point, are we suspending, or are we going to close out the hiring for those 2 positions, or is that gonna be on hiatus until after we figure out what Justice Point's gonna do?
Yeah, those positions would remain open until we went in a different direction. So Justice Point would actually be hiring or employing 2 employees to help with this situation. So they would be Justice Point employees, but using, the funding that we have in place. So those positions would not be filled until such time we either close those positions and continue with Justice Point, or hopefully, get on our own 2 feet. And Justice Point would help us get there, and we would fully employ those 2 people at some point in time in the future.
Ms. McCoy?
I'm just wondering, in hiring Justice Point, is it going to positively or negatively affect our ability to seek grant funding?
So the question was, if Justice Point is brought on board, how does that hurt, or how does that impact the granting ability for the county? Does it hurt it, or does it help that? Mr. Sainer, this is your chance to say something positive.
Sure, absolutely. Well, with regards to the Treatment Alternatives and Diversion Grant, which Mr. Hoff spoke about earlier, Justice Point currently is the provider of Treatment Alternatives and Diversion Grant programs in Milwaukee County, Dodge County, Adams County, Ozaki County, and I think those are the only 4. So we've been successful in actually being partners on the Treatment Alternatives and Diversion grant process. I am also, although I'm not involved in the selection process, I am also on the Treatment Alternatives and Diversion Advisory Board, which helps inform and educate and advise the Wisconsin Department of Justice on how to establish CAD programming and funding for the entire state. So I would hope that we bring some value in that. I'm certainly more than willing to extend our expertise and our services free of charge to any of the programs that, or any of the counties that we partner with, in helping draft and write and review any sort of grant applications as well.
So all we heard was that you're going to do this free of charge. Any other questions?
That's what I wanted to hear.
Anything else from the committee? Anybody else have anything on this topic?
The one thing I would like to add, like Coach said, when it comes to addressing the mental health, addictions, things, and to reduce those recidivism cycles, we can.
Okay. Anybody on the phone who wishes to address the committee? Anything else, Mr. Senator, that you wish to discuss on your act on this?
Not at this point, but I just want to thank the CJCC and you for inviting us to be here. And certainly, if there are any other questions after today, anyone is feel free to contact me either via email or phone. Thank you.
Mr. Hoff, what's the next step in the process?
I make a motion that we recommend the hiring of Justice Point to fulfill the duties and responsibilities of this program.
So is that your recommendation, or are you making a motion? Because I got a hand raised here.
I make the motion to make the recommendation to the county board.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mr. Schuman. In discussion, Mr. Schuman, you have anything else?
I guess I'd just like to add that with the vice chairwoman, Ms. Gouget, we did kind of toss around that number of doubling our contribution to the county for this, and I think that's very doable. We had a lot of support at the table, and I think that Tom and our accountant, Mr. Keefe, can put that together, and I think we can get that done. Ms. Gouget?
Anything else? Any other discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Any other matters for discussion only? Anybody here want to bring up something that's not on the agenda or anything else for the next agenda item? Next agenda meeting? Mr. Schuman.
Well, we brought along, and we forgot to introduce our honorable judge at the Lac-Courte Tribe, Ms. Elaine Smith, and I would like her to say a few words. But one thing I would like to add, Mr. Chairman, is that we're doing a renovation of the tribal government building. And it's going to include expanding our courtroom, and we're going to add some office space and actually a Zoom meeting room where some of our tribal members can come there to meet with the judge versus driving all the way into town and, travel problems we have, and they can't make these appointments or these court dates, that maybe they could come to this area within our courtroom and meet with the judge via Zoom and like we're kind of doing now. So I would like Judge Yackel and Mr. Poquette's advice and meet with our judge regarding how we make this happen, and that we don't miss anything with adding this and when we build this. That's what I have.
Thank you.
Judge Smith.
Thank you. I'm glad that you brought that up. It is something that is in the plans, and it was anticipated that I would reach out to Judge Yackel especially and try to see if we could get that to work, because we have transportation issues with our tribal members. And often I know that they do miss their court dates, and I thought this would make it easier for them if we had a Zoom room. And we've also talked about possible funding of a public defender from the tribe's end, because I know there's a shortage of public defenders, and I know this often results in longer wait times and not getting the kind of services that they need. So that was something else we talked about. But the court is really looking forward to moving forward with that expansion. And I'm happy that PPB is in support of that. And I know most of it comes from grant money, but still we need all to work together and try to provide office space for other offices as well, like legal and other departments that are being expanded. But if you've ever been to our tribal court, as Jim knows, it's very small and crowded in there. And we're kind of all sitting on top of each other. But I'd also, at some point, like to talk to Judge Yackel about the number of misdemeanor cases that are clogging up the Sawyer County Court, and see what we can do to minimize that somewhat. That's all future conversation. But thank you for inviting me today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Any other topics? Anybody else?
I guess I'll just respond to
Oh,
that.
good.
I know that the district court administrator, Jason Weaver, had reached out to me regarding the courtroom, and I had contacted the district court administrator, and he had made the recommendation after my discussion with him that the Zoom meeting room would be something that would be extremely, extremely beneficial. To expand on what we discussed on last time, there was some discussion about whether or not there were individuals in custody with misdemeanor charges. What were they doing? I can tell you from the standpoint of a socioeconomic status that the poorer that somebody may be, the more difficult it is for them to get to a court date. A car that breaks down, they don't have a car, they get a ride with somebody, the ride falls through, and a lot of times some will try to call and some will just be like, well, I can't do it, so I'm screwed anyway. So they don't take that effort. If we can set up Zoom meeting rooms, if they know that they can make voluntary appearances, if they do make a missed court date, I would think, I don't know the numbers, but that's a huge number of people that are sitting in custody because they have missed a court date. not once, not twice, not even 3 times, but 4 or 5 times. And they finally get put on like a $250 cash bond because we can't process this case because every time they come in and they make an appearance or they get picked up, we release them on a signature bond and then they don't come back to their case. So then all of a sudden it's like, all right, they're sitting there on a cash bond and the case usually gets resolved really quick. But I think that if we have a Zoom office meeting, or even whether we not, I mean, just a case that we could utilize Zoom or have a phone in there to utilize just the phone appearance, that's great, because if the building of the second courtroom goes through, I would think that we would be looking at maybe some space in there to have a similar thing in the new courtroom, or the new court addition, whatever it will be. So
That's perfect.
yeah, absolutely.
And I'm glad that Mr. Weaver reached out to you, because he's in charge of our grant construction of this. That's great, Judge.
Anything else? Hearing nothing, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you everyone for coming in.
Thank you.